How's it going, everyone? This is Eflex and welcome back to another A Producer's Approach video. In this video, I just want to say happy May the 4th be with you. So if you guys haven't watched my videos in the past, I basically break down these videos into three separate parts. I have an intro backstory section, then I have a breakdown analysis section, and then lastly I have an outro section just wrapping up my thoughts. So this is the Imperial March Star Wars cover that was originally done by Celldweller, which was already kind of like a remix of the original Imperial March, I believe, probably by John Williams. And then this Celldweller song was remixed by Pegboard nerds. So it's a little confusing. So this remix is almost like a remix of a remix, but this kind of captures the kind of Star Wars vibe with a lot of dubstep, and it kind of showcases Pegboard nerds' more recent dubstep style. So I just happened to make this video because I noticed that May the 4th lands on a Wednesday, and I do Saturday and Wednesday releases now. So I was like, oh, this is a cool idea for a Star Wars May the 4th be with you video. I'm a Star Wars fan as well, but you know, I just didn't realize that May the 4th was on a Wednesday. So definitely just like a coincidence there on that part. But so Celldweller's kind of cover of the Imperial March is pretty good. I think I listened to it maybe, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I believe. It could be even earlier than, not earlier, but later than that, because I can't exactly remember when I listened to that Imperial March cover by Celldweller. But if you guys don't know Celldweller, he does a lot more of the rock EDM fusion. That is like a style I really kind of got into at least a few years ago, especially being into like kind of rock, classic rock, not screamo metal, but some metal kind of like Disturbed and yeah, and you know, other bands kind of like Disturbed, but you know, the electronic kind of fusion with rock was really cool. Celldweller was one of the few besides Voicians and Blue Stahli that were able to pull it off pretty well. So I believe his cover is a little more rockish. And then Pegboard nerds, if you guys don't know, are just OG Monster Cat artists. They've been around since the beginning, since their first release of Gunpoint VIP. That Pegboard nerds, without any introduction, really good dubstep, drum and bass, drum step, glitch hop. They've made so many countless songs. I mean, I'll name a few just off the top of my head. They made Self-Destruct, New Style, Frame Breeze, Disconnected, their most popular song in my mind, Rocktronic, Pink Cloud, Emoji. I mean, they've just made so many good songs that like it's hard to, you know, list how many songs that they have on Monster Cat that are just bangers. But this is their remix of Celldweller's kind of remix of the Imperial March, and it does a really cool job of capturing the Star Wars vibe, but just adding that like nitty gritty dubstep vibe in here. So if you're not so much of a fan of dubstep or really hard dubstep, you might not be a huge fan of this song. But for me, I kind of like that kind of hard dubstep at times, as opposed to, you know, some of the more melodic stuff. Sometimes I like kind of the heavier, grittier stuff. So we'll get on to this video. So this is the Imperial March, the Star Wars cover, originally by Celldweller, but the Pegboard nerds remix. Man, that's a handful to say. All right, let's get started. All right, so it's really cool. They just right off the bat, you kind of hear the almost like vocoded vocals of "You Don't Have the Power," I believe, or "You Don't Know the Power," which is pretty crazy. That's like a kind of special vocoded kind of way that Pegboard nerds does a lot of vocals sometimes in their own music. And then you hear the Darth Vader samples of him breathing in the background, and then you kind of hear the introduction, and then you just kind of hear that ARP kind of right off the bat, and that's like a really Pegboard nerds unique sound to them, is that kind of dark ARP sound, like kind of nitty gritty dark ARP sound, which pairs really well with this remix of, you know, the dark side and all that stuff. So you kind of hear the percussion come in, and it's more in the halftime rhythm, much more like dubstep. So anyways, let's keep going. All right, that was a really cool break section. You kind of have that ARP going. You hear the kick and the snare, really punchy snare, and then you kind of hear all the different little added things like different sound effects, different kind of orchestral instruments, kind of from the original Imperial March by John Williams, I'm assuming. And just kind of their own flair with kind of the wubs too that are very unique to Pegboard Nerds kind of style and sound. So that's really cool there, and you kind of just get that, you know, Star Wars vibe, but like EDM Star Wars vibe. That's probably the best way I could describe it. And I think Celldweller also does his kind of own vocoded vocals at times as well. So it could have been like a Celldweller kind of vocal. Either Celldweller vocoded it himself, or the Pegboard Nerds just like vocoded it themselves on their side for this remix. So anyways, this is going to be the build up, and this song is going to be pretty nuts. So let's keep going. All right, so that was kind of the break into the build up. So cool. I like how they included the like Imperial March kind of theme song, and then they kind of threw in their own little kind of synth in there, almost as like a calm response to the main melody being played, which is kind of like the Darth Vader kind of Imperial March theme. And then kind of this snare build up, which is really cool. And then they have like that calm response thing there too, where the ARP is kind of playing, and then there's kind of like a pause in between where there's like that little kind of synth sound. And then it just kind of builds up with the snare build up, and then with some white noise. And then it comes into this I Am Your Father kind of vocoded thing, and it's about to get heavy and drop. But could you imagine listening to this at like a Star Wars rave or something, or even at a festival? Like this would be kind of crazy, or in a club. But I would imagine more so like at a Star Wars rave, Star Wars themed rave. I don't know. This is where you would hear this. Kind of a strange kind of atmosphere that would be. But you know, yeah, it's definitely gonna drop pretty hard. So yeah, if I missed anything, just let me know in the comments. But let's get into this drop.
Most impressive. No.
All right, so that was really cool. That was the first drop, and you kind of hear the more traditional dubstep kind of music, I guess, with it kind of the wubs kind of hitting like a certain note, and then it's kind of following a progression in a sense, but it's more like traditional dubstep, I would say. All the sounds are pretty unique to Pegboard nerds for the most part, unless there were samples kind of thrown in. But the kind of wubbish sound that you kind of hear is like bub bub bub, like that's kind of the Pegboard nerd sound, and the wubs you kind of hear at the end of phrases. Just one of the things I wanted to point out was the use of like those sounds, and just using and including the Star Wars theme samples, and just kind of capturing that kind of theme in itself in the drop was pretty nice, because the aggression is kind of still there, and then they have different, vocal chops. Like one says force, but it's like really vocoded, and then they have different kind of like almost like R2D2 sounds kind of in the background, kind of playing here and there. And that's just really cool. It really plays into the theme of the Star Wars theme. And then the second part of the drop is playing a little bit different like notes, I guess you would say, for that kind of dubstep drop. But overall, the percussion is really good. It's pretty similar to most dubstep, with a kick and a snare. Kick on one, snare on three, and then some percussion in the middle just to kind of keep the flow. But yeah, you get that really aggressive vibe, and you really do feel like you're in like a raving Death Star or something. I don't even know. But yeah, let's keep on going. And one last thing is I like that kind of the guy that screams, because that's like a stereotypical Star Wars sound, that kind of scream is vocoded out into this break section. That's always a funny sound. So let's keep going. All right, so that was the break section and the build up. So the break section was pretty similar to the first kind of break section in the intro of the song. The structure is pretty similar. Again, I kind of like it when the main melody is kind of playing, and then it kind of cuts out to this kind of creepy-ish sounding kind of pluck sound, along with the R2D2 or robot kind of noises, and the switches back. And then this build up, you kind of hear the kind of main almost Darth Vader theme in the background during this build up, but you could tell this build up is like a lot more exaggerated and a little bit longer than I think the first build up in the before the first drop, which is pretty interesting. I guess to give way more emphasis on the second drop, as it's going to get a little bit crazier than it was in the first drop. So that's just like a little bit interesting in terms of structure. But I mean, the build-up in itself was pretty similar. It cuts out in that same point with the calm response, and then the snares just kind of build up, and then there's like a longer VFX, so they use two kind of VFX to kind of compensate for a longer drop than it was in the kind of first lead up into the build up into the drop. So definitely a cool point there. I really like, again, the use of all the Darth Vader kind of Imperial March and just different samples from Star Wars. So let's get into this second drop and outro, and I'll talk more after that.
Discover your power. No.
Alright, so that was the Imperial March by Celldweller's cover, the Pegboard Nerds remix. So we'll back up a little bit. That second drop was really cool. The first part of the second drop was a little bit different. It goes more 4/4 beat with more consistent kicks. So you kind of feel the faster pace, and then also sounds like that wubbing sound was a little bit different within that section. Then after that, it breaks into like the end of that 4/4 kind of kick beat, and then goes more into the traditional dubstep halftime rhythm. In that section, the wub is a little bit different, and then after that, it kind of structures the same into the second half, the kind of the last part of the first drop, where it's kind of the same structure there. And then the outro, for the most part, is similar to the intro, where the ARP is playing. That kind of nitty gritty ARP, and then you kind of hear the Darth Vader sample, and then you hear the melody of the Imperial March kind of in a higher synth or a higher frequency, just kind of playing, and then just kind of outros out, and then has the kind of R2D2 kind of robot sound to outro out. But in the second drop, it's pretty cool because you do kind of hear like when the wubs are happening. There's a section in the middle, I think, of the drop where you hear the melody kind of come back to end the phrase of the wubs, which is really cool. And then you just kind of hear all those different samples kind of thrown into that second drop. So anyways, this remix is quite a remix, man. The structure is really cool. I really like the theme that they were going for the Star Wars theme. It really hits like right on the mark for the Star Wars theme. All the samples used, the melodies used just for the Imperial March, the aggression of almost like the dark side. That ARP that Pegboard Nerds always use is really good. Their wubs are really good. Just the use of all the vocoded samples is insane. Just kind of thrown in there, and just the use of, you know, how the call and response for the dubstep parts is really crazy. Their own sound design sounds, those wubs and those parts that you hear in that kind of dubstep part is super clean. And overall, I just like the theme of it. This really does sound like, I don't know, Darth Vader hosting a rave on the Death Star. I don't even know, but man, you know, you could be headbanging on the Death Star with Darth Vader or something. I don't even know. But anyways, this remix is really good. Captures that kind of aggressive vibe and keeps the authenticity of Star Wars while being a more EDM remix. So anyways, I hope you guys like this video. I hope I did May the 4th enough justice with this video, and, you know, reviewing a Star Wars themed song on May the 4th. So that's just a coincidence that May the 4th just happened to land on a Wednesday. Who would have thought? And anyways, like, comment, subscribe. If I missed anything in this video, feel free to comment like, oh, you missed this sound, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I probably did. But, you know, the you know, pacing and the feeling of the song almost was making me, you know, and bang myself over here thinking I'm at a Star Wars rave or something. So anyways, I hope you guys like this video, and I will see you guys in the next A Producer's Approach video, and may the 4th be with you. All right, everyone, have a good one. Peace.